story Cosmic Orphan 2020. I journeyed into the real heart of darkness, the locals call it the Asili. Introduction. Some places in this world are best left untouched, mysteries that should never be solved, and stories that are too dark to be told. But here I am, trying to explain something that even I can hardly comprehend. My name is Henry Cartwright, and I've seen things that no human should ever witness, things that should have remained buried in the jungle's deepest heart. But I'm not telling you this for sympathy, and I don't expect you to believe me. This isn't about you, or anyone else, it's about me, the burden I carry, and the silence that's eating me alive. 2 years ago, I went to the Congo. I went there with a group of naive idealists, thinking we could create a better world in the most inhospitable place on Earth. But what we found was something far worse than we could have ever imagined. Only 2 of us made it out. I'm one of them. The others, well, they're gone. And the jungle, the one they called the Asili, has claimed far more than just their lives. I'll be honest with you, what I'm about to tell you is no mere adventure. It's a nightmare that I'm still living, even now. It's the kind of story that, if you were to hear it from someone else, you'd write them off as crazy. But I'm not crazy. At least, I don't think I am. This is real. This is something you can't just forget. So here it is, my story. A journey that started with hope and ended in madness, pain, and horror. And I'm going to tell you everything. Not for your pity, not for your validation, but because I can't hold it in any longer. The Asili is real. And as long as it exists, none of us are safe. I don't really know how to begin with this. My name is Henry Cartwright. I'm 26 years old, and I have a story to tell. I've never told this to anyone, God forbid, but something happened to me a couple of years ago. Something horrible, beyond horrible. In fact, it happened to me and 7 others. Only 2 of them are still alive as far as I'm aware. The reason that I'm telling this now is because, well, it's been eating me up inside. The last 2 years have been absolute torture, and I can't tell this to anyone without being sent back to the loony bin. The 2 others that survived, I can't talk to them about it because they won't speak to me, and I don't blame them. I've been riddled with such unbearable guilt at what happened 2 years ago, and if I don't say something now, I don't know how much longer I can last. If I will even last, whether I say anything or not. Before I tell you this story, about what happened to the lot of us, there's something you need to understand. What I'm about to tell you, you won't believe, and I don't expect you to. I couldn't give 2s ***** if anyone believed me or not. I'm doing this for me, for those who died, and for the 2 who still have to live on with this. I'm going to tell you the story. I'm going to tell you everything. And you're gonna judge me. Even if you don't believe me, you'll judge me. In fact, you'll despise me. I've been despising myself. For the past 2 years, all I've done since I've been out of that jungle is numb myself with drink and drugs, numb enough that I don't even recall ever being inside that place. That only makes it worse. Far worse. But I can't help myself. I've gotten all the mental health support I can get. I've been in and out of the psychiatric ward, given a roundabout of doctors and a never-ending supply of pills, but what help is all that when you can't even tell the truth about what really happened to you? As far as the doctors know, as far as the world knows, all that happened was that a group of stupid adults, who thought they knew how to solve the world's problems, got themselves lost in one of the most dangerous parts of the world. If only they knew how dangerous that place really is, and that's the real reason why I'm telling my story now. Because as long as that place exists, as long as no one does anything about it, none of us are safe. None of us. I journeyed into the real heart of darkness. The locals, they call it the Asili. Like I said, this all happened around 2 years ago. I was living a comfortable life in North London at the time, waiting tables and washing dishes for a living. That's what happens when you drop out of university, I guess. Life was good though, you know? Like, it was comfortable. I looked forward to the football at the weekend, and honestly, London isn't that bad of a place to live. It's busy, people and traffic everywhere, but London just seems like one of those places that brings the whole world to your feet. One day though, I get a text from my girlfriend Nadia, or at that time, my ex-girlfriend Nadia. She was studying in the States at the time and we tried to keep it long distance, but you know how it goes. You just lose touch. Anyway, she texts me, wanting to know if we can do a video call or something, and I said yes, and being the right idiot I was, I thought maybe she wanted to try things out again. That wasn't exactly the case. I mean, she did say that she missed me and was always thinking about me, and I thought the same, but she actually had some news. She had this group of friends, you see, an activist group. They called themselves the, BADS, what that stood for I don't know. They were basically this group of woke students that wanted equal rights for all races, genders and stuff, I dunno. Anyway, Nadia tells me that her and her friends were all planning a trip to Africa together, to the Congo, actually, and she says that they were going to start their own commune there in the ecosystem of the rainforest. I know what you're thinking, it sounds badass **** T mad. And that's what I said. Nadia did somewhat agree with me, but her reasoning was that the world is not getting any more equal and it's never really going to change, and so her friends said why not start our own community in paradise. I'm not sure a war-torn country riddled with disease counts as paradise, but I guess to an American, any exotic jungle might seem that way. Anyway, Nadia then says to me that the group are short of people going, and she wondered if I was interested in joining their commune. I of course said no ***G thank you, but she kept insisting. She mentioned that the real reason we broke up was because her friends had been planning this trip for a long time and she didn't think our relationship was worth carrying on anymore. She still loved me, she said, and that she wanted us to get back together. As happy as I was to hear she wanted me back, this didn't exactly sound like the Nadia I knew. I mean, Nadia was smart, really smart actually, and she did get carried away with politics and that, but even for her, this all felt quite mad. I told her I'd have an answer for her by the end of the week, and against my better judgment I said yes. I said yes, not because I wanted to go, course I didn't want to go. Who really wants to go live in the ***G jungle? I said yes because I still loved her, and I was worried about her. I was worried she'd get into some real trouble down there, and I wanted to make sure she'd be alright. I just assumed the commune idea wouldn't work, and when Nadia and her friends realized that, they would all sod off back to the States. I just wanted to be there in case anything did happen. Maybe I was just as much of an idiot as them lot. We were all idiots. Well, a few months later, I was boarding a plane at Heathrow Airport and heading to Kinshasa, capital of the, Democratic Congo. My big sister Ellie, she begged me not to go. She said I was putting myself in danger and I agreed, but I felt like I didn't really have a choice. My girlfriend was going to a dangerous place and I felt I had to do something about it. My sister, she basically raised me. We both came from a dodgy family, you see, and so I always saw her as kind of a mom. It was hard saying goodbye to her because I didn't really know what was going to happen, but I told her I'd be fine and that I was coming back, and she said you better. Anyway, I get on the plane, and that's when things already start to get weird. It was a long flight, so I tried to get plenty of sleep so I wouldn't be jet-lagged, and that's when the dreams start, or the same dream. I dreamt I was already in the jungle, but I couldn't move. I was just floating through the trees and that, like I was watching a David Attenborough documentary or something. Next thing I know, there's this, fence, or barrier of sorts, running through the jungle. It was made up of these long wooden spikes, crisscrossed with one another, sort of like a long row of X's. Anyway, on the other side of this fence, the rest of the jungle was like pitch black. Like you couldn't see what was on the other side. But I can remember I wanted to. I wanted to go to the other side, like it was calling me. I feel myself being pulled through to the other side of the fence and into the darkness, and I feel terrified but excited at the same time. And that's when I wake up back in the plane. I'm all panicked and covered in sweat, and so I go to the toilet to splash water on my face and I realize I don't want to be here anymore. All I think now of doing is landing in Kinshasa and catching the first plane back to Heathrow. I'm still asking myself now why I never did. I landed in Kinshasa, and after what seemed like an eternity, I work my way out the airport to find Nadia and her friends. Their plane landed earlier in the day and I had to find them by 1 p.m. sharp, as we all had a river boat to catch by 3. I eventually find Nadia and the group waiting for me outside the terminal doors. They looked like they'd been waiting a while. As much anxiety I had at the time about all of this, it still felt really damn good to see Nadia again, and she seemed more than happy to see me too. We hugged and made out a little. It had been a while after all, and then she introduced me to her friends. I was surprised to see there was only 6 of them, as I just presumed there was going to be a lot more, but who in their right mind would agree to do what we all were doing? The first 6 members of this group was Beth, Chantal, and Angela. Beth and Angela were a couple, and Chantal was Nadia's best friend. Even though we never met, she gave me a big hug as though she did. I guess Chantal was one of those always happy people. The other 3 members were all lads. They were Ty, Jerome, and Moses. Moses was the leader, and he was this tall, intimidating guy who looked like he only worked out his chest, and he wore this gold cross necklace as though to make himself look important. Moses wasn't his real name, that's just what he called himself. He was kind of a religious nut of sorts, but he looked more like an American football player. Right from the beginning, Moses never liked me. Whenever he even acknowledged me, he would call me some name like Oliver Twist or Mary Poppins, either that or he would try mimicking my accent to make me sound like a chimney sweeper or something. Jerome was basically a copy and paste version of Moses. It was like he idealized him or something, always following him around and repeating whatever he said. And then there was Ty. Even for a guy, I could tell that Ty was good looking. He kind of looked like a Rastafarian, but his dreads only went down to his neck. Out of the 3 of them, Ty was the only one who bothered to shake my hand, but something about it seemed disingenuous, like someone had forced him to do it. Oh. I think I forgot to mention it, everyone in the group was black, Nadia included. The only ones who weren't were me and Angela. Angela wasn't part of the BADS. She was Beth's girlfriend. Angela, she was pretty cool. She was a little older than the rest of us, and she apparently had an army background. I mean, it wasn't hard to tell. She had short boy's hair and looked like she did a lot of rock climbing or something. She didn't really talk much and mostly kept to herself, but it actually made me feel easier with her there, not because of, but because neither of us were BADS members. From what Nadia told me, Moses was hoping to create a black utopia of sorts. His argument was that humanity began in Africa, and so as an African-American group, Africa would be the perfect destination for their commune. I guess me and Angela tagging along kind of ruined all that. As much as Moses didn't like me, it turned out Ty hated me for different reasons. Sometimes I would just catch him staring at me, like he just hated the S***T out of me. I wouldn't learn till later why that was. What happens next was the journey up the Congo River. Not much really happened, so I'll just try my best to skip through it. Luckily for us, the river was right next to the airport, so reaching it didn't take long, which meant we got to avoid the hours-long traffic. As bad as I thought London traffic was, Kinshasa was apparently much worse. We get to the river and it's huge, I mean, really huge. The Congo River was apparently one of the largest rivers in the world, and it basically made the Thames look like a puddle. Anyway, we get there and there's this guy waiting for us by an old wooden boat with a motor. I thought he looked pretty shady, but Moses apparently arranged the whole thing. This guy, he only ever spoke French, so I never really understood what he was saying, but Moses spoke some French and he pays him the money. We all jump in the boat with our things and the man starts taking us up the river. The journey upriver was good and bad. The region we were going to was days away, but it gave me time to reacquaint with Nadia, and the scenery, it was beautiful. To begin with, there was people on the river everywhere fishing in their boats or canoes and ferries more crammed than London Underground. At the halfway point of our journey, we stopped at this huge, crowded port town called Mbandaka to get supplies, and after that, everything was different. The river, the scenery, it was like we left civilization behind or something. Everything was green and exotic. It honestly felt like we had stepped back in time with the dinosaurs. I do remember reading that the Congo had its own version of the Loch Ness monster somewhere, that it's a water dinosaur that lives deep in the jungle. It's called the Makolbembe or something like that. Where we were going, I wasn't sure if I was hoping to see it or not. I did look forward to seeing some animals on this trip, and Nadia told me we would probably get to see hippos or elephants, but that was a total letdown. We could hear birds and monkeys in the trees along the river, but we couldn't see them. I guess I thought this boat ride was going to be a safari of sorts. We did see a group of crocodiles sunbathing by the riverbanks, and if there was one thing on that boat ride I feared the most, it was definitely crocodiles. I think I avoided going near the edge of the boat the entire way there. The heat on the boat was unbearable, and for like half the journey it just poured with rain, but the humidity was like nothing I ever experienced. In the last 2 days of the boat ride, all it did was rain, constantly. We were all drenched. The river started to get more and more narrow, narrow enough for only one boat to fit through. The guy driving the boat started speeding round the bends of the river at a dangerous speed. We honestly didn't know why he was in a rush all of a sudden. We curve round one bend and that's when we all notice a man waving us down by the side of the bank. It was like he had been waiting for us. Turns out this was also planned. This man, Fabrice, I think his name was, he was to take us through the rainforest to where the group had decided to build their commune. Moses paid the boat driver the rest of the money, and without even a goodbye, the guy turns his boat round and speeds off. It was like he didn't want to be in this region any longer than he had to. It honestly made me very nervous. We trekked on foot for a couple of days, and honestly, the humidity was even worse inside the rainforest, but the mosquitoes, that truly was the F*G worst. Most of us got very bad diarrhea too. I think we all had to stop about 100 times just so someone could empty their guts behind a tree. On the last day the rain was just pouring down and I couldn't decide if I was too hot or too cold. I remember thinking that I couldn't go on any longer. I was exhausted, we all were. But just as this journey seemed like it would never end, the guide, Fabrice, he suddenly just stops. He stops and is just frozen, just looking ahead and not moving an inch. Moses and Jerome tried snapping him out of it, but then he just suddenly starts taking steps back, like he hit a dead end. Fabrice's English wasn't the best, but he just starts saying, "I go back." "You go. You go. I go back." Basically what he meant was that we had to continue without him. Moses tried convincing him to stay, he even offered him more money, but Fabrice was clearly too afraid to go on. Before he left, he did give us a map with directions on where to find the place we were wanting to go. He wished us all good luck, but then he stops and was just staring at me, dead in the eye, and he said, "Good luck, Arsenal." Like me, Fabrice liked his football, and I even gave him my Arsenal cap I was wearing. But when he said that to me, it was like he was wishing me luck most of all, like I needed it the most. It was only later that day that we reached the place where we planned to build our commune. The rain had stopped by now and we found ourselves in the middle of a clearing inside the rainforest. This is where our commune was going to be. When everyone realized we'd reached our destination, every one of us dropped our backpacks and fell to the floor. I think we were all ready to die. This place was surprisingly quiet, and you could only hear the birds singing in the trees and the sound of swooshing that we later learned was from a nearby stream. In the next few days, we all managed to get our strength back. We pitched our tents and started working out the next steps for building the commune. Moses was the leader, and you could tell he was trying to convince everyone that he knew what he was doing, but the guy was clearly out of his depth. We all were, that was except Angela. She pointed out that we needed to make a perimeter around the area, set up booby traps and tripwires. The nearby stream had fish, and she said she would teach us all how to spear fish. She also showed us how to make bows and arrows and spears for hunting. Honestly, it just seemed like there was nothing she couldn't do. and if she wasn't there, I doubt any one of us would have survived out there for long. On that entire journey, from landing in Kinshasa, the boat ride up the river and hiking through the jungle, whenever I managed to get some sleep I kept having these really uncomfortable dreams. It was always the same dream. I'm in the jungle, floating through the trees and bushes before I'm stopped in my tracks by the same makeshift barrier fence, and the pure darkness on the other side, and every time, I'm wanting to go enter it. I don't know why, because this part of the dream always terrifies me, but it's like I have to find what's on the other side. Something was calling me. On the third night of our new commune though, I dreamt something different. I dreamt I was actually on the other side. I can't remember much of what I saw, but it was dark, really dark. But I could walk. I was walking through the darkness and I could only just make out the tree trunks and the occasional branch or vine, but then I saw a light, ahead only 20 meters away. I tried walking towards the light, but it was hard, like when you walk or run in your dreams, but you barely move anywhere. I do catch up to the light, and it's just a light, glowing, but then I enter it. I enter and I realize what I've entered's now a clearing, a perfect circle inside the jungle, dark green vegetation around the curves, and inside this circle, right bang in the middle, is one single tree, or at least the trunk of a tree, a dead, rotting tree. It had roots that were like octopus legs that curled around the circle's edges, and the wood was very dark, almost black in color. A pathway lined with stones leads up to the tree, and I start walking along it. The closer I get to this tree, I see just how tall it must have been originally. A long stump of a tree, it leans over me like a tower. Its shadow comes over me and I feel like I've been swallowed up, but then the tree's shadow moves away from me, as though beyond this jungle's darkness is a hidden rotating sun, and when the shadow disappears, I see a face, high above me on the bark of the tree, carved into it. It looked like a mask, like an African tribal mask. The face was round and it only had slits for eyes and a mouth, but somehow, the face looked like it was in agony, the most unbearable agony. I could feel it. It was like torture, like being stabbed all over 1,000,000 times or having your own skin peeled off while you're paralyzed. I then feel something down by my ankles. I look down to my feet and then I look around the circle. The floor of the circle is covered with what look like hands, severed hands, littered all over. I try and raise my feet, panicking. I'm too scared to step on them, but then the hands start moving, twitching their fingers. They start crawling like spiders all around the circle. The ones by my feet start to crawl up my legs and I'm too scared to brush them off. I feel the hands crawling all over me and I feel like I can't move. I then feel a huge weight come over me and I fall to the floor and I hear a zip. End of part 1. Outro. What happened in that jungle, the things we saw, the things we became, will haunt me for the rest of my days. And the truth of what I've told you, the truth of the Asili, is not just some terrifying tale spun for shock value. It's a warning. I don't expect you to believe me, I really don't. I wouldn't blame you if you didn't. But I'm telling you this because I have to. Because the memories of what we did, what we unleashed, are too heavy for me to carry alone any longer. I've told you the story of my journey into the real heart of darkness, the place that called to me, that twisted my mind, that tore us apart. The others, I don't know where they are. The ones who died, they never deserved any of it. The ones who survived, well, they don't want to talk to me. I don't blame them. But me? I'll be left with this burden forever, and I don't think I'll ever escape it. As for the place itself, the Asili, I don't know if it's still there. I don't know if it ever really existed in the way we understood it. But I do know one thing for sure, there's something out there, waiting. And I don't think we're the last to stumble across it. Maybe one day, someone else will venture into that cursed jungle. Maybe they'll find the clearing, the tree, and the hands. Or maybe the jungle will find them first. But whatever happens, I pray they don't make the same mistake we did. Because some darknesses, once uncovered, can never be forgotten. That's all I have to say. The rest, well, it's in the past. And as for me, I'll carry it until I can't anymore.